predators are often severely punished by the legal system, but sometimes victims or their families are seized with a horrible rage and decide to take justice into their own hands, in full view of everyone in the courtroom. Today we take a look at 5 child predators who were brutally killed in the courtroom. Richard Gross. Imagine being a victim of one of the most traumatic experiences a child can face. You carry the pain with you for years, waiting for the day justice will be served. Finally, you're in court, facing the man who took your childhood away. But instead of the justice you deserve, you watch him walk free. This is the gut-wrenching reality Tyler Fu faced when Richard Gross, the man who had abused him for years, received no prison time after a plea deal. But Gross's day in court didn't go as smoothly as he might have hoped. Richard Gross was an 80-year-old convicted of child sexual abuse. When he was finally brought to trial, Gross was charged with 26 felony counts. However, the legal process didn't deliver the outcome that Fu and other victims had hoped for. Gross's age became a focal point in the courtroom. His defense argued that due to his advanced years, he should receive leniency. After all, what good would putting an elderly man behind bars do? This line of reasoning swayed the court, and in a move that shocked many, Gross was spared a prison sentence altogether. When the court handed down its lenient ruling, Fu was faced with the grim reality that the justice system had failed him once again. Thus, in a moment of pure frustration and anger, Fu decided to take matters into his own hands. As Gross stood there, triumphant in his ability to escape punishment, Fu charged at him. The courtroom erupted in chaos as Fu landed a punch on Gross's face, a raw expression of the years of pain he had endured. It wasn't just about the physical act, it was about everything that punch represented. Maryann Bach. The next story brings us to Germany in 1981, where a mother named Maryann Bach made headlines worldwide. If you've ever heard of a parent's worst nightmare, this is it. Maryann's 7-year-old daughter, Anna, was murdered by a man named Klaus Grabowski. But what happened next shocked the world. During Grabowski's trial, Maryann didn't sit idly by and wait for the court's decision. No, she had other plans. In one of the most unforgettable moments in legal history, she smuggled a gun into the courtroom and, in a fit of grief and rage, shot and killed Grabowski, the man who had taken her child from her. She fired 7 bullets, ensuring that the man who killed her daughter would never hurt anyone again. But how did it come to this? Why did Maryann feel like she had no other choice but to take the law into her own hands? The answer lies in her story and the immense pain she carries after losing her daughter in such a brutal way. Klaus Grabowski, a convicted child molester with a long history of abusing children, had manipulated Anna into his home under the guise of friendship. He then held her captive, knowing her family was searching for her. Eventually, he killed Anna, but what made Maryann's story even more heartbreaking was the fact that Grabowski had been on the run before he was caught. The legal system had failed to keep him behind bars where he belonged, and because of that failure, Anna lost her life. Christopher Elwell. There's one unspoken rule in prison that even the most hardened criminals abide by. Child predators are the lowest of the low, and Christopher Elwell, convicted of using a 4-year-old girl, was about to learn it really soon. He was handed a sentence of 7.5 to 15 years for the sexual assault, a crime that horrified the community in Dover, New Hampshire. Elwell's crimes, after all, were stomach-churning. He had shown sexually explicit material to not just 1, but 3 children, using his access and influence to manipulate them into silence. When he stood in the courtroom after being convicted, everyone thought justice had been served. Josiah Davies, a fellow inmate waiting for his own hearing and who didn't even know Elwell, watched from the back of the room. But when Elwell sat down, Davies could no longer contain his rage. With a single explosive motion, he headbutted Elwell again and again. Why would a fellow inmate take such drastic action? It's simple. Child predators are universally reviled. For Davies, Elwell represented everything wrong with a system that sometimes allows these offenders to slip through the cracks. The story quickly went viral, with people on social media hailing Davies as a hero. Many saw his actions as justified, given the monstrous nature of Elwell's crimes. In fact, a GoFundMe page was even set up to support Davies, though it was later removed. The attack on Elwell didn't come without consequences for Davies, though. He faced additional charges for the assault, potentially extending his own justice for what they had endured. Theodore Dyer. Theodore Dyer, a convicted child molester doctor and former police officer, was locked away for molesting a 9-year-old girl. His crime made him a target from the moment he stepped inside the prison gates, but what sealed his fate wasn't just his past, it was his mouth. Dyer's descent into infamy began in Grand Haven, Michigan, where he was a trusted neighbor to a single mother and her daughter. Mary, the mother of the 9-year-old victim, never had any reason to suspect that Dyer, who lived next door with his girlfriend, would pose a threat to her family. He was friendly, helpful, and always around. In fact, the two families were so close that Dyer had become like an adopted grandfather to Mary's children. They spoke daily, and the bond between them seemed unshakable. But all that changed one night in June 2013. Mary's daughter was spending time at Dyer's apartment, something that had happened many times before. It was late, and Mary went over to bring her daughter home, but as she approached Dyer's bedroom, something felt off. Instead of knocking, she quietly walked in, and what she saw shattered her world. Dyer was assaulting her daughter. Mary didn't hesitate. She slammed the door open, grabbed her daughter, and fled back to their apartment. Later, as the shock wore off, she gently asked her daughter if what she saw had happened before. The girl admitted it had been happening for some time. This revelation led to Dyer's arrest and conviction for first-degree criminal sexual conduct. Fast forward to October 29, 2014. Dyer was 10 months into his sentence at Saginaw Correctional Facility when he met his end. His cellmate, Stephen Sanderson, was already serving a life sentence for a 1991 murder, but he wasn't interested in Dyer's stories. According to Sanderson, Dyer would regularly try to justify his crimes, explaining away his actions as if they were excusable. To Sanderson, who had already navigated the brutal hierarchy of prison life, this was intolerable. He warned Dyer to stop, telling him he'd have to leave the cell in the morning if he couldn't keep quiet, but Dyer ignored him. At last, Sanderson snapped and attacked Dyer, strangling him to death. The prison guards found Dyer's body the next morning, and Sanderson, already serving life without parole for a previous murder, pled guilty to second-degree murder. There wasn't much left for him to lose, and he knew it. His confession spared everyone the drawn-out process of a trial, and it allowed him to return to his new maximum security cell, where he'll likely spend the rest of his days. If you enjoyed this video and want to dive deeper into similar content, go ahead and click on the videos displayed on your screen right now. Each one offers more captivating stories and insights that you won't want to miss. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.